Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today. Happy Thursday. We want to welcome you to the final DotFit Masterclass of the decade. Kind of crazy. It went by so quickly. And we all have the holidays coming in, and in our industry, we're going to get a rush of people into the gyms here in the next couple weeks. And so we thought it would be perfect timing to review the new formula for ThermAccel. And as usual, our fearless leader, Neil Spruce, is going to get started. So before I let him go, let me introduce myself, which I forgot to do. I'm Kat Bearfield. I'm your VP of Nutrition Services and Registered Dietitian. I will be your host today. And some housekeeping, you are in listen-only mode, which means that we're going to capture a good recording for this for you guys to share afterwards. And then we'll take your questions and we'll answer them for as long as you would like to afterwards. So the way you would do that is you would enter in your questions into the questions box down towards the bottom of the GoToWebinar window. You can expand that, enter in your questions at any point in time throughout the webinar if anything comes up, and we'll be able to address every single one of them afterwards. We will also post the recording on the website along with the download of the slides within 48 hours, so you guys will have that as well. So without further ado, Neil, take it away.
Thank you. In case you haven't noticed, I dressed up for you today, all right? And I even got my Christmas cut and shine for all of you that know me. So I'm ready for, and I didn't realize, forget it, this is actually the last one of the decade. And I didn't think about that. I was thinking about the year, but decade, wow. Okay, so anyway, let's get started. This is pretty cool. This is something that's taken another 2 years in the making. You know me, it takes me a long time to get something done because it's so thorough, and it's got to be better than anything else you can find out there. So the time that's spent is, of course, well worth it. And good things take time, and that's I think we've got that for you today. I think it's going to be a quintessential product going forward here. So and I'm just going to go quickly through some of the mechanisms of action and some of the different things and how they work together for you. All right. So, but before I always do that, what I want to show you right now, just remember, and by the way, this is a download for you, so that's why it has all the references and so forth. So I'm not going to really talk to this part of it. I just want you to make sure that you understand our position on weight loss. We don't walk up to people and say, hey, here's a weight loss product, take this pill. That doesn't work. You know that, right? There are so many other components to successful weight loss. The supplements are a part of getting there faster and maintaining structural integrity of the body as you lose weight, right? So I just want to make sure this document is always here. This piece is always here when we go through this, right? We know that diets by themselves just don't work. Almost everybody gains the weight back unless they are incredibly motivated, okay, like movie stars and so forth. All right, now, so therefore, we always recommend exercise and, of course, the diet, meal planning at a very safe rate loss. Now, sometimes people just can't do it at a safe rate loss. A safe amount of weight loss. Many people want it quickly for whatever reason, whether they kind of blew it going into a wedding or they blew it, for a movie like the actors and actresses we work with, whatever. And then we have to get very aggressive, and then supplements become even more important, right? But at the end of the day, most importantly, and this is job one for all of you as fitness professionals, as health professionals out there, we have to avoid the loss of lean body mass, okay? And the only way you can do that is fill all the unavoidable nutritional gaps that are caused by a diet that is reducing food intake. So we got to make sure that they are at least taking something to fill those gaps. At a very minimum, you got a multivitamin, mineral, and then of course enough protein daily. All right. And then now to go to the next level, again, when you look at supplementation on the big level, so all of it when it comes to weight loss, one, fill gaps. We already talked about that. Preserve lean body mass. We already talked about that. But now if we can make it easier for them so they don't surrender or give up, that really is something that that we look for one of the specialty supplements we'll talk about today. And that is, can I increase your energy level? Can I make you feel better when you're doing it? Can I manage appetite? And then once your lifestyle conforms to that, then you'll be able to maintain it without having to take specialty products, which is what we're going to talk about today. So just a little refresher here. Job one during weight loss for all of you as fitness professionals. Job one is to improve or at least preserve functional and structural integrity. And that's lean body mass. Because listen, it would be the best thing in the world if when you drop calories to lose weight, that you only lost body fat. How easy would the job be? But unfortunately, the body gets rid of what uses the calories, so it dumps muscle, it dumps organs. Your organs begin to shrink, bones get smaller, all these bad things happen. So you're reducing lean body mass so your body can live on the lower calories. So we can't let that happen, and that's what it's all about. So first thing we've got to do is protect those things. Make sure everyone takes a multivitamin mineral, and you know what we have there, and enough protein, and at least a gram per pound during weight loss, for sure a gram per pound of lean body mass. And if it's aggressive weight loss, you have to go higher than that, and we all know that. So I just want to get that out of the way and make sure you guys know that. And sometimes that might be all you need for somebody, right? Because it's going down very quickly, they feel better, all the good things are happening as they go through that. But unfortunately, we also know that it doesn't always work for everybody. They have to get it fast or they're going to surrender. So if we can make it happen as easily and quickly for this person, for these people that have lost weight and gained it back 2 or 3 times, right? And while making it helpful, because we got the baseline supplements taken care of, we can get them instant gratification because they're actually feeling better as they go through the process, and that gets them a quicker addiction to fitness. And that's what our goal is with anything we get to that place when it comes to specialty. So from a temporary standpoint, we add supplements for getting over the diet hump for these people that really struggle with it, right? Or they have time constraints. We got that short window, like actors or actresses we work with. And of course, multiple failures, as we talked about. So these would be specialty fat loss supplements, and you know what we use? We use weight loss liver support. Okay, we have carb repel, both of those are non-stimulant, and then we have the updated ThermAccel, which is what we're going to talk about today. And this thing is updated, okay? It has kind of gone to a whole different place. And on that note, so our marketing guy here, a guy named Joel Greiner, he said, hey, Neil, before you go on, can you just talk about what you do and why we update things and how that goes in our world? Because that's not the way it works in the real world. Most people just look at what in the supplement world, because we're R&D, but in the supplement world, companies just look at what's hot. What are people reading in magazines? Let's just make that, right? Well, we don't do that, obviously, and you guys know that because we are a research and development company. So for us to look at a product, we are plugged in, and maybe I can show you all this stuff here, make sure I do and get it back, but we are plugged into the most recent science, rapidly evolving science of nutrition, of feeding the body, okay? That's what we're plugged into. I see everything before it actually happens. If you've been to my offices, for many of you that have been to my office, you've already seen it. That's why it's as big as it is. The walls are covered, the tables are covered, and we are just totally plugged into everything. So daily research is what leads to any evolving formulas that we may have, staying within the evidence-based guidelines. So the first thing is, first of all, it's got to fit within the goal of what we're trying to do. We are non-clinical, no medicinal supplements at all. Our only goals are to preserve health, weight, obviously speed, accelerate weight control, enhance performance, or muscle gain, okay? So those are the goals that's got to fit into. And the only research we're allowed to use is peer-reviewed journals, okay? So, and then from the web, we go to Medline only. We don't Google. We do not use fitness magazines. Don't use muscle magazines, right? But we get real-time data from what's going on in the dark rooms of science where you're seeing things evolve when all the great discoveries are made. So we're plugged into all that, and we get to see that in real time. And I know you guys that have been in my office, you've seen how we're plugged into all that stuff. So that's the first thing, product goal. And then the rationale for the ingredient selection, okay? And what that really truly is, it's the overall structure and function of how they actually work in the body, individually and then synergistically, which you'll see as we kind of go through the ThermAccel, all right? So we have to describe that. And within that, we'll find the mechanisms of action for each one of these ingredients. And that helps determine the symbiotic relationships. In other words, how one plays off the other. And that is a true unique DocFit discipline. No one else really does that. We look at how that can possibly play off the other or not, and then kind of look if we can find any studies that kind of support that whole piece there. And we can make a pretty big decision. And by doing that, we look at the human studies that determine safe and effective forms, dosing, and of this synergistic consideration. So what else would a consumer might be taking? What might they not? Or how do these ingredients actually work together, not to be just safe, but also to be effective? But so we have to look at everything. We don't just look at human studies on that. We have to look at animal studies as well. And we have to look at effective studies. We have to look at negative studies that actually showed a downside, not an upside, and then null. Null just means nothing happened, okay? Which is actually a good thing for a lot of the things. Nothing happened. But then we capture the human results to determine, as long or not, because we could go through this whole process. And I could be 6 months down the road and I said, we can't make it, didn't pass muster, it didn't get this far. But by looking at the human results, we determine the forms, the dosage, and the amounts, and the timing. These are all critical to the success of any type of product that you're going to use and ingest in high concentrations of ingredients into the human body. And that is the creation of the Practitioner Dietary Supplement Reference Guide that formulates the final product. So on that note, hang on. Let me get my, here. So what you end up seeing is this. You end up seeing this. So here's the ThermAccel one, for instance. So there's the goal, like I told you, that's the first thing. It's got to fit within the goal. And I just, I'm not going to read this to you, but, bottom line is what we're trying to do with this is with ThermAccel, is to favorably affect fat oxidation properties, smoother daily boost. It's not showing up? Oh, it is. Okay. It's just a little slow. Sorry. I hope you can get it now. But so here's the goal. This is what created. This is a 1.5 year project on this particular product. So here's the goal. We're just trying to overcome. The goal is to overcome natural plateaus, right? Here's the rationale. The rationale is we describe first, and these are all, as you can see, this is all real peer-reviewed studies here. We have to first describe what are the natural defenses the body mobilizes against dieting, and how do we attack those? And we attack those with these particular concentration of nutrients, of compounds, bioactives that can change the body in a very safe, in fact, actually maybe even a more healthy way. So you can see the 3 different ingredients here. And then we break down the ingredients one at a time and look at the effective doses. And the doses are all put on as you see on the top here. What are the effective doses? What is the mechanism of action of caffeine on energy expenditure and all these things? And what is it actually doing in the body all by itself, right? How it affects appetite, and then you get to green tea and its mechanisms of action. So where do they fall in? Now, at this point, you're getting an idea of how these could work together, right? But still, different mechanisms of action attacking the same situation, which is, an easier fat loss. Then you get down to the next grouping, you get down to capsaicin, which is the last thing in the ThermAccel, and you start talking about a whole different mechanism of action of speeding up metabolism, burning more calories. And then you get into the new one, of course, which is Sinatrol. And it's got another unique mechanism of action to do the different things. So putting all that together and then coming up with, the different studies, and you published all the studies that showed positive, anything negative, or anything that was null. Okay, so that's what it comes down to, and that's what it looks like. I just wanted you to show you the work that goes behind the scenes to create a product that would give a practitioner like you all the confidence in the world. This is the best at this point in science to tackle this goal. Okay, so with that said, let's move right into ThermAccel. All right. So again, the only major change here now actually there's actually 2 of them. Obviously we got rid of the Leptocor. We couldn't find. There are 2 good studies on it. Those of you that have read the PDSRG before on it, we did find 2 good studies on it. But Sinatrol's got a stronger one. They were a larger group of people that were involved in it, and they had 3 in a row all back to back that have showed some significant. That's by itself, not even combined with all these things here. So this was a much stronger ingredient to put in there. Plus the mechanisms of action were significantly different as well, even though they're attacking sort of the same pathways in the body. All right, so that's the main one. And the other thing is, you'll notice that I dropped the caffeine content. So this really is 2 products in the morning, 2 products in the later afternoon. Okay, I'm sorry, 2 tablets in the morning, 2 tablets in the afternoon, rather than trying 2. There was a little bit too much caffeine in the old ThermAccel, and I think it kind of just was a little too much for for a lot of people. This one here is going to be a nice, soft, easy, metabolism boost along with the extra part of Sunitrol. Okay, so this is just the formula. We just move on from this here. I just put it there for you. All right, so the goal, very simply, is increase calorie burn without forcing more work. We already talked about that. Or reduce diet. We don't want to have to reduce calories as well, and to avoid plateaus. That's what the goal is. Getting that person over a plateau or speeding up the process itself. Because in order to, the rationale is pretty simple. In order to continue weight loss, obviously, when a natural adaptation takes place, and by the way, I put that little note down at the bottom. As soon as you lose 10% of weight, you're going to burn 100 to 150 less calories a day. So you're going to come to a plateau. Your body's just not going to, continue losing weight when you cut your calories. You got to cut them further and further. As your body gets smaller and burns less calories, then you have to keep lowering lower and lower. We're trying to avoid that by getting your body to naturally burn more one way or another. And that's really what we're trying to do, because we do not want to add more deliberate work or less food. We want to do that, right? So that's what we have to do otherwise. But if you can, through supplementation, increase the calories burned without adding more exercise, that's huge for these people that are doing enough exercise already because the diet's good, all right? And their movements are good. They don't really have that kind of time. And they're getting discouraged by having to do too much work. And the needed work, the needed work is just spontaneous. In other words, they just feel better all day. If they feel better all day, they're going to burn more calories all day, and we don't have to lower the calories. Body fat will continue. And that's what we're trying to do. So if we can do that, then we can avoid these natural plateaus. And then if we can also control appetite, that's the other part so we don't have so when we do have to lower calories, we can control appetite and make them stay there. And thermogenic blends can do both. We know that, right? And then there's some plant extracts like Camellia fibrillata that has also been shown to be able to do that. So these combined and potentially additive effects should ease the workload. That's at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, ease the workload and manage hunger to allow continued weight reduction with less hardship. That's the ultimate goal and rationale for making it. And we have a three-prong approach. One, the Thermogenic Complex, which is caffeine, yerba mate, guarana, green tea. Okay, and they have independently they work, but they also synergistically, there's actually an enhancement. And yerba mate and guarana, we don't really talk about that too much. It's just part of the thermogenic blend because they're synergistic with caffeine. They also contain caffeine themselves, but there's a total amount of caffeine that we call out on the label. So there's the first thing, right? To be able to increase total daily energy expenditure and fat oxidation. And these are all the studies you can see there. Now, Sunitrol, the new guy in the block, this is big here. This is a non-stimulant, so we're not pumping up the stimulant effect from caffeine at all, and they're just nothing but polyphenols, okay? And they come from like the inside rind of different fruits and so forth. But they also contribute by different mechanisms to the increase in fat oxidation. In other words, when I say partitioning energy usage, what that means is when your body is using energy, it decides to prefer fat than muscle or carbohydrate. And that's what these ingredients have shown to be able to do. And not in a giant way, but in enough to make a significant difference. And then finally, of course, the Camellia fibrillata, which is the appetite suppressant, which has had significant, or probably more mild effects on weight loss if you use it by itself, but when you start to combine it, it gets a little bit different. Okay, so the thermogenic blend. Maximum dose is 2 tabs twice daily. So I want you to start, you can, because the caffeine is low enough there, it should be no problem starting somebody out that way. You can try 2, and then if, as long as after about 4 or 5 hours, they could use another one, they can do it again. The other one, we told you 2 only, unless you were okay with that, then you could go to 4. Okay, but this, you should be able to do fine, because we've only got 200 mgs versus the 350 in the 2 before, which was pretty high. All right, but the bottom line there is that caffeine, as we know, increases metabolic rate and fat oxidation, but I wanted to put the mechanisms of action here. First of all, there's what we call a stimulation. It's actually a blockade, stimulation of the adenosine receptors. And what that does, that also increases dopamine, which is why caffeine actually can make you feel a little better, including improving mood, right? But what that does, it sets off a cascade of events. the first thing, you end up with cyclic AMP, adenosine monophosphate, the base molecule, for energy. That ends up rising at a crazy rate in the body because the adenosine receptor is now shut down because the caffeine molecule is identical to the methylxanthine molecule, which is caffeine, is identical to adenosine. So it just fills the receptors. And AMP, now adenosine can't get in there. So the AMP levels stay high, and that's what you want. When they're high, it's telling the body, let's burn fat. We got to burn fat because we're in trouble here. We got to, find more energy. All right. So that's the beginning of the cascade event. That's why that blockage keeps you alert and when you should be going to sleep, because the adenosine receptor is supposed to fill up with adenosine and slow you down so you don't burn out. Well, if you block them off, then you can continue to go. But that sets off more than that. There's also the sympathetic activation. Methylxanthines activate the central nervous system, which starts with a blockade. So don't get me wrong, it's the cascade of events. But then from that point on, now you've got your norepinephrine and your epinephrine going up in the body. And then the enzyme that breaks down cyclic AMP, which is phosphodiesterase, right? We'll call it PDE from this point on. It is now, caffeine can actually inhibit that. Now it helps to, that would normally break down the cyclic AMP. Now we can maintain that higher AMP, which is what we're trying to do to increase the fat burning, heat production, and then liver satiety signals. That's why when you're burning fat, when you're burning more fat than you are carbohydrates, surprisingly enough, you're actually being more satiated. That's what happens when you do. That's why when you're exercising, you're generally not hungry while you're exercising. You might be hungry before and after, but when you're exercising, you're not. As you start burning fat, it kind of shuts that down. So that's how caffeine works pretty much, right in there, the mechanisms of action. Now green tea, which is why you see this often, and DeLu did the studies on these things, the synergistic effect of green tea, the extract, epigallocalin gallate is the extract, Egcg. So that's definitely the part you're looking at from green tea. But it increases energy and fat oxidation by inhibiting the enzyme, what we call catechol-O-methyltransferase, right? And what that does, that normally breaks down the catecholamine transmitters, which are what? Norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is the ones caffeine stimulates, right? So now you're starting to see how these things work together. So now we're blocking PDE, okay, with caffeine, and you'll see how also Sinatrol does that. So now we can keep the AMP high, but now by blocking COMT, okay, or the catechol-O-methyltransferase, by blocking that enzyme, now we're keeping the catecholamine transmitters high. So we've got some good stuff going on just with those two and their synergistic effect. The other thing that we just learned, this is very recently, that Egcg also enhances, that's why it works by itself even without caffeine, also enhances the gene expression when it comes to the AMK, the cyclic AMP kinase. So you've got the adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. That is the one that regulates the degradation of all the different energy molecules, AMP, ADP, and ATP. So now you've actually got that enzyme, right, changing the way this ratio does. And then some good things happen, as you can see here. It suppresses the gluconeogenesis, or the making of sugar in the body, and then lipogenesis also. So some really good things kind of happen with these two just on their own, right? And I put this in a little chart for you so you can use this anytime you want. But this kind of puts it all together. As you can see, where caffeine does it, where it inhibits this, and all the things we just talked about, stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, okay, which is with catecholamines we just talked about, going up. And as you come down through here, then it increases energy expenditure. That's why you get a little buzz from caffeine. Increases the burning of fat. And of course, satiety from all the things we just talked about, and that decreases hunger. So this is just caffeine all by itself, and I kind of listed all these little targets, for you right there. Here's what we just talked about with the epigallocalin gallate, the Egcg extract from green tea, all the different things that it does. But the new thing here on this, which was really cool, was the whole idea that this is brand new. The way it affects AMPK, so adenosine monophosphate kinase, activated kinase, that's new. And that's something that we've just kind of learned in the last couple of years. And now it's sort of described. That's why that question, you see that question mark up in there. No one really knew the answer to that before. So this was all discovered by Yang et al. So this is at least the proposed way it activates through affecting the ratios of all the different energy molecules once they're kind of loose in the body like this. So I put it together, and this is the original study that showed how caffeine mixed with EGCG increases not just 24-hour energy expenditure, and that's a significant amount here, okay? A couple hundred calories a day, I'm in, okay? And then, of course, fat oxidation. So that's energy partitioning that we were talking about. So just those two ingredients alone, you've got a home run. But what we did before, our next thing, we use capsaicin as well, and about 17 milligrams, okay, which is about 100 to 150 Scoville units. It really kind of depends on the raw material, and so it kind of varies, but that's what we call it at this point. Now it works completely different. It increases energy expenditure and lipid oxidation. It goes after fat as well, but it doesn't. And we're using appetite through number one, the stimulation of what we call TRP, right, which is the transient receptor potential, and then going through that enhances brown adipose tissue, and that's huge. As you guys know, brown adipose tissue is that stuff that surrounds your organ that. When we call it adipose tissue, you think it's fat. Well, it is fat, but it burns more calories than muscle. That's all it does is burn calories and release heat. That's how you stay warm in the cold. That's what begins to change. Everything begins to kind of change. When you get cold, brown adipose tissue gets fired up, and you start burning calories to release heat to keep you alive, to keep your temperature up. Well, and that's why when you eat chili peppers, you feel that going on. So that's why we put that in the thermogenic blend. So again, it does it through those different receptors, okay, which again is activated by the sympathetic nervous system and increases calorie burning. And the way that does that, when you produce energy, that goes out to energy, mechanical energy, but when you produce it in brown adipose tissue, it breaks off. The second it gets it's not connected to anything that's going to, except shivering, right, to get you to shiver, but then it just opens up. It's called uncoupling, and that's what capsaicin does. And that's how it locks up, and of course improves I put some diagrams. These diagrams are just for you. I'm talking to them before you even actually see them here, but it kind of shows you as it goes, as capsaicin ends up through the TRP channel, comes through here, stimulates all this, and not only that, it actually turns white adipose tissues, and that's all the bad stuff, the subcutaneous fat. It can actually beige them and start getting them to burn more calories as well as it turns them into brown adipose tissue. That's something new. That's why you're seeing a lot of activity around chili peppers and all of these different things right now. Capsaicin, which is the main ingredient, the main type of pepper or ingredient in pepper. And if you just saw the new study that just came out the other day, you saw that the people that eat two chili peppers a day, I forget what it was, but it reduces the all-cause mortality by 40%. So there's a lot of good things in there. Of course, the peppers themselves are full of all kinds of great stuff. So that has nothing to do with necessarily capsaicin, but capsaicin is one of the compounds inside those peppers. This is the one that causes all the fat burning and the raising of the heat. So I put a couple more diagrams in here so you can kind of take a look at how that whole thing works for all you science heads out there. So there's capsaicin. So that takes care of our thermogenic blend. Well, what happens if that's too much for you, which is why we add theanine. And so we got 100 mgs in the two tablets, right? And what theanine pretty much does as an amino acid, it actually raises the gamma aminobutyric acid, okay, and GABA, right, which is an anti-stress chemical that goes through the body, and it helps balance out caffeine stimulation. Caffeine tends to overstimulate most people by putting theanine, and by the way, that's a natural ingredient in tea, which is why tea can actually calm you, even though it's got caffeine, is because theanine is very high in tea compared to regular coffee. So, and by the way, when you look at all the studies, and there's plenty of them out there, that's why I just showed you right here, between 214 and 222, those different ones that we have there, about 8 different studies, 9 studies. Theanine has the greatest positive effect on outcome measures when it comes combined with caffeine. I'm talking about cognitive and mood. All right, so the brain functions better with a little bit of theanine in there when you have caffeine. So which is why we put it in there. All right, and then Carluma fibrillata. We haven't changed anything there. Everything's pretty much there. There is it's more of a carbohydrate manager, if you will. Manages sort of the glycemic levels of the body. It can block carbohydrate absorption. It does that as well. It blocks the amylase, not unlike carb repel. Because it's a plant extract, right? And fiber can do that. So this is a concentrated plant extract that can actually block a little of the digestion absorption of the carbohydrate. So you can certainly hang your hat on that. But there's also some SSRI, which is the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. That there is some sort of another part there that affects appetite. At least that's a proposed mechanism of action. So we have that in there at a very effective dose as well. And that's what it takes to make that product work. And don't forget, products like that are sold all by themselves. We're putting an effective dose, and sometimes the effective dose in our product that we're combining it with is actually more than you can find in the other ones that you buy by themselves. So you're getting like a 4-for-1 here. I say Sinatrol for last only because it is the new guy, right? The new on the block. But it works through a whole different mechanism to kind of attack the same pathways in the body. It proves the overall fat burning activity by inhibiting, and you guys already know now, as we just talked about that, the enzyme that normally breaks down cyclic AMP, right? So it also inhibits PDE by a different mechanism, which would enhance, of course, the fat oxidation and then related gene expression. So you get a very favorable energy partitioning with Sinatrol all by itself. If you look, you'll find Sinatrol in the market all by itself. Okay, and it also does the same thing Egcg does, but by a completely different mechanism, and that's reduce the activity of COMT, the catechol methyltransferase. All right, which is again, that's the one that breaks down. The one that breaks down norepinephrine, epinephrine, apart from the sympathetic nervous system stimulation. So now you're eliminating part of that too. So now we've got it coming in from all directions here. So Sinatrol is the big player in this. So I kind of put this together for you. If you take a look at the main mechanisms of action up here, you've got here where it blocks COMT. So you got that as Sinatrol comes in here, in through the cell receptors here to increase ADP, and then it blocks again. It blocks here. So now you're blocking here the phosphodiesterase. And now you got caffeine coming in over here that does that, or the methylxanthine molecule, right? You've got Egcg also doing a little of that over here. So you've got a gangbuster thing going on here all the way around. And there's also a slight little sort of possible gene expression change with all that. So I put this in. So this is pretty amazing. This was the first and second study. This is a first or second study of Sinatrol. But first of all, this just shows you how it significantly stimulates fat burning activity. And it's from the actions of breaking down PDE more than anything else. They show a 6-fold increase, okay, in the cyclic AMP from blocking PDE. That's pretty tremendous all the way around. And so at the end of the 6 or 12 weeks? Yeah, 4 and 12 weeks. The versus placebo, you had a 2.53% in, this is body fat percentage now, which is huge, 5.6 after the 12 weeks, respectively, all the way around. So a very significant amount. And by the way, you got to remember something. That's 6.6, 12.3 pounds after 4 and 12 weeks versus placebo. By the way, that's by itself. It's not with all the other stuff we just put in there. And that's why I'm trying to tell you, this could change everything as you started getting into next year with your clients that have struggled with losing weight before. Okay, and by the way, there's 2 or 3 other studies that pretty much exactly the same results. All right, so let's just take a look at typical use. You guys already know this, but anyone without adverse stimulants, because if you're uncomfortable with stimulants, you don't want to use this, even though it's going to be pretty mild. So it's worth a try if you're not like completely uncomfortable, and you're trying, of course, lose weight, avoid plateaus, and so forth. And then anybody that needs serious multiple-pronged approach to weight control, that's definitely someone that would be using it as well. Obviously, if you're taking heart medications, it's automatically crossed off. That happens when you go through our supplement screener in our medical questionnaire. That cuts it off. And then you do not want to use it within 4 hours of other stimulants. And that's the reason I put that in there, because everybody has coffee all day. You could probably do a cup of coffee with it, but I'm just telling you, it's probably not the greatest idea. And if it bothers you, then don't do the coffee with it. Just stay on the proper dosage of this, and then have coffee at a different time. Even a couple hours later wouldn't be too bad, because this is not as high in caffeine as the old product. And of course, this is a big one. I want you to remember, this is not something you take for a lifetime like a multivitamin mineral, right? This is something you use and you discontinue once you get to your goal. And even if you're not to your goal, if your lifestyle's under control, then you don't need it anymore. Now, I've seen people use it for a year, so I get that, and that's not a problem. And by the way, there's not a problem anyway. We don't know any safety, there's no contraindications for healthy people. But, you know, it's just one thing. I always just try to do everything I can to let people know this is something you need to take forever. Your multivitamin and mineral you take forever. You're not getting out of that one, right? But this is something you only need to help you get over that hump or get you to that next level there. And then this is just the directions we just talked about already. All right, let's just summarize this bad boy and get into your questions. The combined ingredients have the ability to significantly increase your metabolic rate and potentially your total daily activities because it makes you feel better, while balancing the stimulatory effects of caffeine with theanine, of course, all right, and then suppress appetite. And this is all through many different mechanisms of action, as we just looked at. I mean, and the big part here, right here, the ingredients may have not just additive effects, but also they have mutual and exclusive pathways and additive effects in synergistic pathways. And hopefully this will help the user avoid common or unavoidable plateaus that would naturally happen by just pushing you just a little further, making you feel better to work, to just kind of move throughout the day at a greater place, you know, without having to completely always increase exercise, drop food. That's what the goal is. And when you took it, by the way, you guys all know this, I hope, weight loss prescription drugs are pretty much useless. You know, they have too many negative side effects, including many of them pulled off the market with minimal results. So there's a high interest in products like this, and this could be the new thing that kind of just takes it over for everything out there. So get it out there with your tough clients, or I should probably say some of your parents that have struggle losing weight. This can help them tremendously. All right, so I put a little pictorial summary together for you. Caffeine, the primary things that happens here, you've got an adenosine blockade taking place. Once you do that, this whole cascade of events takes place. Other stuff, the PDE blocker as well. And then you get down here, the new thing we kind of discovered here, it might be affecting the ratio of the energy molecules, causing all this stimulation here of all the good things that you want to happen in muscle and in adipose tissue. And then don't forget this part, of course, the catechol methyltransferase inhibition to keep the hormones high, the central nervous system hormones or the sympathetic nervous system hormones. Capsaicin, of course, completely different mechanism of action, which is increasing brown adipose tissue, which burns calories just through heat. And then in Sinatrol, the big new daddy right here, you've got the COMT being blocked, and then PDE, and you get an increase in all this, you know, such as the hormone-sensitive lipase to open up and release fat. So you end up increasing all of these things as well. And then finally, the convoluta fibreata, obviously completely different, and that's just glucose management, so blocking, you know, some of the bad things that happen with carbohydrate. So there it is. That's the summary of the whole thing, a little picture for you, so you guys can all download this so you have it. And with that, I will turn it over, Kat, turn over questions and answers. Kat, you there?
Yep, okay. Thank you, Neil. Okay. Well, that was jam-packed with some content. Huh, you guys? Hopefully.
Hey, I did that pretty fast. I did that in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised, Neil, that you got through it.
No, and I'll tell you what, that's a labor of love making that product. As you know how long it took. And then, you know, poor Chad, he had to go, you know, sourcing the raw materials and everything else was a nightmare. You know, so that's why it took an extra year to get this thing out. And then we finally ran out of the old formula, so we got it released. So let's just get it out there and see how many people we can help.
Okay, so I would so agree, because at this time of year, coming to January, everybody's looking for, you know, a little bit of help trying to obtain their weight loss goals. And a lot of people will believe misinformation regarding fat burners, thinking that by themselves is going to make a significant difference. So we definitely need to educate our members on how to use these tools properly. So if you guys have specific questions or even general questions about anything related to, fat loss, weight loss, etc., now is the time, because your clients will be bombarding you with these in the next few weeks. So to ask a question, you would open up the questions panel in the GoToWebinar window. And you just type it in, and then we will field them as they come in. So I see a comment coming in. Cherry Hill was checking in at the beginning of the webinar. Thank you very much, Cherry Hill team, for checking in. Appreciate that. And Brian Woodford out of Edge in Connecticut says, I love all the science. 3 quick hitting points to drop the wow on our members. Is that a question, Brian, or a comment? If you could just clarify that, that would be great.
Brian, start going.
Al wants to know, okay, it's a question. So Brian wants to know, give me, Neil, 3 quick hitting points to drop the wow on our members about this product.
Well, first of all, you've got the number one thing, we can go back to that, that sort of summary slide. What you're trying to do here with this is it is a new combination of products that aren't just safe, but shown to effective by themselves. So more importantly, they're additive. They're coming at your body. Your body mounts natural defenses against losing weight. They're coming against all those things from different areas. So that's really what it's about. Additive and synergistic effects of these ingredients. And Synatrol is a new one. It's really actually a new one out there. So that's really what you're talking about. And not only that, this isn't that burnout buzz that you get. It is a nice, smooth, you come down, you're not burnt out at the end of the day, sleep fine. So those are kind of your wow factors all the way around. It's brand new, synergistic and additive, and again, you're not just going to get a burnout feeling from it. The goal is to make you feel better while you lose weight. That's a wow for me.
Yeah. Not to mention, did you say that, Neil? Did you say it's going to kill your appetite?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know if it'll kill it. I don't know if it'll kill it, but it can certainly mitigate.
I think initially it does. That's my experience. Maybe you guys can comment of it, but yeah. Okay, so Brian, if you want more from Neil, we can pull it out of him. So just let me know if that's enough for you, if you think that's and if not, we'll bust his chops a little bit. Okay, so Al wants to know, how does this work with Carb Repel? Great question.
Yeah, that really is. Any of these products can work together. You guys have, the number one question I get asked all the time is, can I use all the Lean Pack 90 at one time? And the answer is yes, you can. Use as directed. Carb Repel really is for that person that's just eating a little bit too many carbs and they just can't sort of shake themselves. So that's kind of the way I look at it. If you use this with Carb Repel would add to it, without a doubt. It certainly wouldn't detract from it. It would actually probably work pretty well, because you would get that double whammy from Carmelua along with the Carb Repel working to block amylase, which is the enzyme that breaks down carbs so you can absorb it. And both of them block amylase. So you could accentuate it then. And that's why when Kat and I, when we work with actors or actresses getting ready for movies, because they're on their timelines, because the producer and their director want them over, they've got a shirt and got to take their shirt off for a picture or something like that, we will use all of it. And it makes it much easier, and it's a lot faster that way. But they don't have any budget concerns, so you got to deal with budget concerns with other people. But yeah, it would only accelerate. It would only make it probably even better.
Right. So to Neil's point, different mechanisms of action, no stimulants in Carb Repel, so you're not going to get the additive effect of additional stimulants. Right. So very good question.
You wouldn't want to go that extreme with ThermAccel.
Yeah, so that's what's coming up next. So Bernice out of Oahu, Honolulu.
Oh, Bernice, what's the due date? Now I'm asking her a question. Uh-oh, we just locked up.
With this, is it too much just do a minimum of 2 tabs of workout? Did you catch it, Neil?
Kat, for some reason the internet's not working well. Can you ask that again? Ask it again, Kat.
So talk about how to use this with Workout Extreme. What would be the proper way to incorporate?
I'm not sure I would. Workout extreme really truly is something you would use completely different. Whether if you're an endurance athlete, that's what it's designed for, you know, for like marathon runners and, you know, other people there, or it's designed for just to pick me up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use both. I don't think that, I couldn't make a case, and I would tell you not to.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's just too close. I mean, what do you can't take them both at the same time. It's just, that is too much of a stimulant all the way around. Some people can take it just fine. I know people that just live on Monster drinks every hour, right?
Yeah.
You can't get any more stimulant than that. But I'd rather you wouldn't do it.
So Neil, would it be possible or viable to take, let's say, workout extreme in the mornings or right before a workout, and then take a ThermAccel, maybe a dose prior to lunch, you know, for appetite control?
For sure, you could do it that way. Okay, that's a good point. You absolutely could if you can do it. But if you were going to take ThermAccel the way I'm telling you, you know, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, I'd rather you didn't take something in between.
Yes.
But no, that's a good way to do it. That's a very smart way if you were going to use both.
Yeah, and to Neil's point, you know, you don't want to combine stimulants. So just to give you a number, you know, 400 to 500 milligrams per dose can cause, you know, sensitivity symptoms in people. So just don't chase it with the monster. Okay, so hope that answers your question. If not, type in a follow-up, and congratulations, Bernice.
Was that Bernice? Yeah, that's Bernice. Okay,
yeah.
Congratulations,
So,
Bill.
check this out, Neil. Her due date is 2/2/20, February 2nd, 2020. How exciting is that? Super Bowl Sunday.
I love that. I love that. The one thing I always tell people about due dates, that's the one day you're not going to have it. It'll be very close, but it's the one day you won't have it. It's very close. Unless you have a C-section, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah. So congratulations, Bernice. Thanks for the question.
For sure. Congratulations.
And that's a good follow-up. Brian wanted to follow up and said, perfect. Thank you. That's exactly what he needed, Neil. So appreciate
awesome. Well, thanks for getting your team on, Brian. I appreciate all you guys out there.
Okay. So another question is coming in. What are other evidence-based fat loss supplements out there?
I hate to say it.
L-Carnitine a good one?
Say that again.
They want to know about L-Carnitine.
Okay, yeah, that is definitely not evidence-based for fat loss. It is evidence-based for people that have inborn errors to be able to burn fat properly in the mitochondria. They have to load them up with 7, 8, 10 grams a day. And that's how it kind of got into the fat loss world. You need high doses for these people, and it works. It actually does. They can do a better aerobic work, good things happen, but they are a diseased population, right? So they have a clinical problem. So it does work for that. So that would be evidence-based for that. When it comes to fat loss supplements, to be perfectly honest with you, there really aren't any that are evidence-based. There are a preponderance of evidence, like the ingredients in ThermAccel, right? I mean, we know caffeine is evidence-based for performance enhancing, and it also increases energy expenditure. So you can call anything with caffeine in it evidence-based, which is why we kind of call ThermAccel. But if you took Sinatrol by itself, it wouldn't pass evidence-based. It's got enough evidence for you to put it in something and sell it, and you can support that because of the 3 clinical trials that have been done, which is unusual for any kind of fat loss supplement. But you wouldn't fall in the category of going to a doctor and doctor writing you a prescript for Sinatrol, right? So we're trying to do it the best way by adding other things that can make it way better than a prescription drug. It's really tricky with that. So evidence-based for sure is meal replacements. Meal replacements are the #1 evidence-based weight loss treatment in the world, bar none. That's better than drugs, better than anything, are meal replacements. That's why I don't let anybody walk out of my office when I'm doing, even when I was a bodybuilder still doing that kind of training, without 12 weeks of meal replacements. You walk out with 12 weeks, right? 2 of those a day, along with your regular food. Here's the meal plan, get out. And here's your multivitamin. And that's how they start. If they struggle anywhere, then I add something like ThermAccel, right, to boost it up. But meal replacements are really the only true evidence-based where a doctor has to tell you, yes, that works, right? And everybody agrees it works.
Okay, very good point. There's so much scores of evidence that a protein-rich meal replacements accelerate weight loss and help with maintenance. So very, very good point that, everyone should be utilizing that from a evidence standpoint for weight control.
And it saves you money on groceries. I always tell people that. You're 12 weeks, so that'll save you a ton on groceries.
And talk about choices. I mean, did you guys notice we came out with unflavored best plant protein recently? And then the unflavored whey. I mean, we have so many choices, and the lean bar. So we're making meal replacements and getting enough protein as convenient as ever before. And if you guys get something else, let us know, because we're game.
One more, yeah, exactly. And I mean, we have so many options now. I mean,
Yes.
The problem with all the proteins we come out with, you don't have enough room on your shelves. We're already finding that out. The unflavored protein, I mean, people are buying it online like crazy. So we blew that up. That was like crazy.
Right.
But there are people from your gyms and so forth. So you're getting the rev share. So that's all the same. But the point is that, you know, how many proteins you can come out with unless you have a retail store, right? Where you guys aren't GNCs. Now, maybe the Edge is about as close as you get to that because you guys have some retail room. But that's what kind of the problem being able to do that. But if you can send them online, it's the same thing. You still get your amount from it and everything else. But yeah, so I mean, we've got the meal replacements you can make now. Lean MR is obviously the kind of quintessential one for people. But you got so many different proteins to pick from. And don't forget, it's just the starting material. You can mix whatever you want in there. Put all the fiber put all the fiber you want in a Whey Smooth, right? Put your fruits in it. Whatever you can change the profile anytime you want. So yeah, amazing stuff all the way around.
Absolutely.
Choices.
Okay. So
before
Jean,
anybody gets off, before anybody gets off, I want to do this because I know that, you know, our time is, my time's not up. I will be on here till tonight to answer all your questions. But I also want to say this. Just a couple things I wanted to say before everybody checks out. And one, it was just like a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. This has been, you know, far and away an incredible growth year for us. And I know many of you out there, it is for your business as well. And by the way, you're all in business, whether you work for somebody or not, you're your own business. So I know that just from hanging out with you guys. I traveled more this year than I did almost my whole life, except when I was with Gold's opening up the gyms around the world when I was still a bodybuilder and when I first started Apex. This is the most I've ever traveled, certainly with .fit. And so I got to spend a lot of time with you guys. And it has been just this incredibly wonderful experience. You guys know I'm on the back half of my years. And to be able to spend it with all of you and watching you, you know, serve your communities and being engaged. You're not just exercise instructors. You're actually telling people how to live, you know, how to give them a holistic solution to live better, so their kids have an opportunity that maybe we didn't have, you know, our parents didn't give us. So, you know, I mean, all these great things. Like I just my little way of saying, you know, just thank you. I will be out there again all next year and until the day I die. You know, I did tell my wife I'd retire at 97, so I'm kind of stuck with that number. But that's still a ways to go. I can't tell you that, you know, we don't exist without you. You know, all the things that you've done for us and makes the reason I get on a plane and I go out and spend time with you guys. And I wish every one of you that are on here today, I'll bet many of you are, but I wish all of you had a chance to spend time out at the ranch like so many of you have, because you all deserve it. Regardless of how you get selected or how that all happens, you know, you all deserve it for us to be able to just spend time together and get inside each other's soul and just talk about how we're going to continue making a difference. And we're making a difference. We're getting bigger. People are really getting it right now. We're making a huge difference. And that was just my last little sort of happy holidays to all of you. Just want to thank you so much for everything you're doing, and you should be real proud of what you're doing. And I will be there for you all the way to the end. Trust me, forever. Thank you.
Yeah, he definitely will. Till the very end.
That's right.
So thanks, Neil, for that. I'm sure everyone appreciates that, as do I. It's been a wonderful year. We do have a couple more questions that are coming in, so let's address those. James, hey, James, out of the Edge.
Hey,
okay, so he's using NO7 prior to his workouts, typically towards the evening, and then he's using ThermAccel before meal 1 and 2. So is that okay?
As long as you're a few hours apart, you're fine, especially with the new one. If you're using the old ThermAccel, the old ThermAccel with an hour or two after NO7, that might be, and you'll easily use the second one, no problem. You know, you're not screwing up your sleep at all. You'll be fine.
Yeah. The only thing I would say is I'd caution you on too late on the NO7, because you guys know Neil's talked about this. Caffeine has a half-life of around 4 to 6 hours, depending on how quickly you metabolize it. Could still be in your system and create sleep latency or sleep issues. So just What do you say, Neil, about 6 to 8 hours prior to bedtime?
Yeah, I mean,
What are you thinking?
that's fine. But you know what? I know James is a competitor. And I remember me being a bodybuilder, I could drink caffeine right before I went to bed. When you're dieting, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And you've just worked out twice a day, right? And you're working a full-time job, you crash no matter what. So it's very personal.
Okay, it is very personal, but do pay attention to sleep patterns if you're taking it late at night and see.
For sure.
Andrea, I do see your hand is raised, so if you don't mind putting your question in the questions tab and entering it in that way everybody can hear it and field it, that would be fabulous. Okay, what else do we got going on, you guys? Let's see. Okay, can you talk about what doctors are prescribing for patients for fat loss?
You probably can.
What should our response be is really the question. What should our response be when doctors make prescriptions for fat loss?
Yeah, you know the drugs, the Suburitine or whatever it's called. I think,
like
there are a couple. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right. Those ones there. You know what? You know what you don't do, we're not clinical. Okay, so the first thing you know, you don't argue with their doc. I would just put them on a meal replacement. Hey, you know what? This will complement it. So let's stay away from ThermAccel. Let's stay away from those. The doc's got you on something else because we're not going to do that. But the meal replacement, there are zero contraindications, obviously. It's just food, good food, right? So that's what I would do. Nothing more than that. Don't argue with that. And I mean, if it's your mom or your dad, tell them to get the hell off it, okay? Because it is not going to do them any good. You can do that because you don't have to worry. You can fight with your parents and the doc anytime you want. Tell them to get off it. I know if it was someone in my family taking a prescription drug, I say get the hell off it. Here is a meal replacement program, and then I'll add ThermAccel to that, which is going to work 10 times better than that drug will. I can promise you that. But that's between you and your family, not anybody else. Don't get between a customer and their doctor, ever. Okay. Just add meal replacement.
Good advice. Good advice. Okay. So Neil, if you were to pick one product to help clients with weight loss, what would it be?
Don't forget, everything's a multi, right? So that helps protect lean body mass during that weight loss. But forget that. There's a lot of other good things. It also supports appetite. That's just automatic, so we can just forget that one. Meal replacements. It would always be that, and usually Lean MR. Lean MR is the one I would pick unless they are, if they're training hard. Okay, here's the perfect weight loss program. Since you asked, okay, you take a multivitamin every day. You use Lean MR for 2 meal replacements, right? For 2 meals a day, and then you have 2 regular food meals, and amino boost before and after your workout. There's hardly any calories in that. You are done. That is probably the best longevity weight control program you ever have. You can do that the rest of your life. Be able to keep your muscle much longer than if not. So I say Lean MR would be the one I pick, other than the multi that you have to have.
Okay, very good. I like it.
But if you're in trouble, ThermAccel. I mean, it's not even close. You know what I mean by that is that people just can't. I would go ThermAccel, the number one pick. Otherwise, if you're in a hurry.
Got it. Okay, great. Sean wants to know, should this be avoided for overweight clients who are already on a very low calorie diet and don't have an issue with overeating?
They'll be fine. There's no reason in the world you wouldn't use it. Because most of your clients, and Sean, I've been around the block 100,000 times, most of your clients that are not overeating, that are overweight, are overeating. I'm just letting you know. We know that. We put them in metabolic chambers. We find out how much they lie. And again, or just underreport, or just no one saw me eat, it doesn't count. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. We know this. They underreport by foot. The heavier you are, the more you underreport. No matter how much you want to believe your client, we know that if you weigh 200 pounds and you never, ever moved, you laid on a bed your entire life, and I measured your metabolic rate and how many calories you burn, you'd still be burning 1,700 calories if you weigh 200 pounds. So that's just basal metabolic rate, and there's no way around that. Human beings would die as anything else. So we know they are. So I'd give it to them. Absolutely give it to them, and just it's okay to believe them, but just you have to understand that this would probably really help them cut some of that sneaky calorie stuff away. So I would definitely give it to them.
Yeah, Sean, maybe you would want to ask a follow-up question. I don't know if you're concerned about them like eating fewer calories than they already are. So maybe if you want to ask a follow-up question, type that in. But
Well, I mean, that's what I was trying to answer.
Yeah.
Because when I was so and by the way, Sean, no one in the world's worked with more clients than I have, because I didn't just do, we did 500,000 new ones every year in 24-hour fitness, and any plateau would come to me, right? So we know what's really happening in the big picture all the way around, and kind of how that worked. When someone would come to me and I'd go like this, okay, measure your body fat, take your weight, you weigh 150 pounds and you're trying to get to 130. Okay, well, I didn't eat, I had a salad. Okay, I ate 1,000 calories. And I go, okay, so I'm going to measure you later, and we'll measure you next week and everything else. Measure, and they go, okay, well, everybody always wants to say you're eating too little, because that's that starvation mode myth. And trust me, it's myth. I know how it started. There's a whole long conversation around that. We wrote a whole thing. I wrote a paper on that many years ago, how that got started. But the point is that that's not what's happening. People that starve to death don't die fat. So we know that doesn't exist. You get to that place. So what happens is with these people here is that what I end up doing when they get down, well, all I had was 1,000 calories. And then 3 weeks later, they weigh the same and their body fat hasn't changed. And I go, okay, 1,000 calories must be your maintenance. So let's go down to 500. And all it is they're just doing their math wrong. So when I say that, they're really coming down to 2,000 from 2,500. So I'm just saying, I had to play the game all the way around, because you can't just tell them, you know what, you're just doing the math wrong. Even though you can, and you can support that, because I know the science of the human body. They don't, and I know how the myth started. So anyway, you got to be really careful with that and how you do that. So in other words, I always like, the one other thing you can do is when they come to a plateau and they're saying that's all I eat, the last thing I want to do is reduce calories. You know that, right? You want them to improve increase their daily activities. Make sure they get like a Fitbit or something that counts their steps. And that changes everything, because I go like this. In the gym, what are you gonna do? If you give them 20 more minutes of cardio, that's only like, I don't know, 150 calories. But the 12 hours, 15 hours a day they're not sleeping, they can stand up and burn twice as many calories if they pace a little bit like this than they are if they're sitting down. So I make them all get up and move. When they're on the phone, always be standing, pace a little bit. That's when I created the body book. That's when it proved to all these people that they were lying, of course, because we was telling them exactly how many calories they were burning. So that's how I won that game at the end. But anyway, so you just really have to, and when I say lying, they're just misrepresenting. The word lying is not fair. They're just misrepresenting it. So just be careful about that, but just try to increase their daily activities. That's the first thing you want to do. And that's just outside the gym, because most people can't do more time in the gym, and that's insignificant amount of work anyway, right? That's just for your health, right? And body composition. Outside the gym, daily activities. I used to tell everybody, go for a walk at the mall. Leave your purse and wallet at home, though, so you don't spend any money. But just little things like that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, very good. And just to reiterate what Neil just said, I just sat in a conference presentation by Professor Brad Dieter, who presented on metabolic adaptations during weight loss. And he identified in the research that the #1 cause of a weight loss plateau is a decrease in what Neil is saying, daily activities, because your body tries to fight being in a deficit. And so you will subconsciously move around less. And so tracking steps and making sure their step levels go up as they're losing weight is a really good strategy and is evidence-based, just like what Neil was saying. Yeah. So very, very cool. Good advice. And then we've got another one coming in from Brian. For many of my clients who regularly drink green tea throughout the day, both green and black, is there an upper limit to watch for when it comes to the Egcg and the L-Theanine?
Good question. And yes, there is. And it's around 800. Kat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually wrote it. If you look at the PDSRG, I put that number in there. I think it's around 800 milligrams a day. There is some liver toxicity in very susceptible people, a different polymorphism and a gene polymorphism. They are susceptible to it, and too much of Egcg has been shown to be toxic at that level. And of course, you can see we're half that, or less than half that. Yeah. At full dose, but I think it's around 800 mgs. You have to look at that to be sure. Yeah. So I would probably advise them not to. If they're having 4 or 5 cups a day, I would probably not. But I wrote that all very clearly, and I haven't. So just pull that up again, and then you can look at it and see what that number is. But that's a very, very good question.
So Brian, In your trainer account, there's a section in the navigation menu called Research. If you click on that, that'll take you to the PDSRG, Practitioner Dietary Supplement Reference Guide, and click on ThermAccel. And for every single document, Neil puts in upper limits, contraindications, adverse reactions. So just go ahead and scroll down in that document. He has it right there in his hands, but it's also on the website for you to access.
I'm going to make sure it's the.
See how he is? He's got to look up the exact value.
Yeah. I'm glad somebody asked. That was a good question, by the way. I was glad somebody asked that. Yeah.
So we got some more questions coming
800 milligrams. I was right. 800 milligrams. I'm looking at the contraindications right now. By the way, thanks for asking that question, whoever that was. Yeah.
Okay. So Andrea,
and by the way, that's for 12 months or more. So don't forget, it's not like it's a short term. So if they're using it for 3 months, right, they should be just fine, even if they are drinking a lot of green tea. So I just read that, the rest of it.
Okay, great. Awesome. See what a valuable resource you guys have? It's all there at your fingertips. Okay, so Andrea wants to know, would you suggest using this product with the liver support? And secondly, do you treat the liver support like the multivitamin or stop using the liver support once the goal is reached?
I would stop using the liver support once the goal is reached for sure. But yes, they would definitely complement each other, no question. You've got 2 different appetite suppressants, and then the other one it really is for a liver cleanse. And for those of you that don't know, the weight loss liver support is especially designed for people that are a little bit more overweight than the average overweight person, if you will, right? So when you get into the obesity, because you don't just get fat under the skin, the subcutaneous fat. When the body is trying to figure out, when you keep overeating, the body just has to figure out other places to put fat. It runs out of room. So it starts putting it in what we call ectopic fat. It puts it in places it definitely doesn't want to be. Skeletal muscle, visceral fat, the gut area. So you're starting to see it in all your organs, and especially liver. And when the liver gets clogged up, bad things happen because the liver is the CPU of your body, right? It makes all the decisions for your everything. It goes in there first. Well, do this, done this here, burn fat, no, burn sugar. It makes all those decisions. And it can't make them very well when it's all choked out. So that's how you end up with kind of the problem. That's what weight loss and liver support is really designed for. So once their weight comes down, I don't see a purpose in it at all.
Okay, and there you have it.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any last minute questions for us? Well, again, we'll stay as long as you want, but that's the end of the list that I have here. If I missed you, I apologize. Please retype it in. But just as a reminder, we'll put a recording, including the QA section, on the website within 48 hours, as well as a download of the slides. So no other questions, you guys? You sure? Okay, Neil, you want to close out?
No, I did already. I just want to make sure I caught everybody. Again, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I can't wait to see you guys again after the new year. I will see you in the clubs very, very soon. Thanks for attending all these things. Really appreciate it.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
See you later.